details from me later about that. Okay, let's get started. I just want to welcome you here today to talk about shut down the ports. We're standing in front of the World Trade Center, as you can see, partly because EGT, and a multinational grain conglomerate, has offices here in this building, and also they have offices and business down at the ports. They've been involved in a labor dispute in Longview with the longshore workers, and also with dubious labor practices here in Portland. So they're partly something that we're targeting. And I just want to talk for another minute about just the facts, just the logistics of what's going to happen on December 12th. So we have a day of action to share, as well as insights from the workers, the veterans and organizers that I've just introduced, about the significance of shutting down Wall Street on the waterfront. On Monday, December 12th, the community of Portland will gather at 6 a.m. at Kelly Point Park in North Portland to rally and then march to port terminals that we will be picketing. The community picket will block gate access to the port terminals with banners and moving pickets. The picket will include food, music, coffee, drums, sort of a celebration also. We expect that workers and trucks will arrive and they will see the community picket blocking the gate. An arbitrator will be called, and we fully expect that the workers and the truck drivers will respect the community picket as they have many times in the past. The port workers have a long and proud history of doing so. The community picket will remain up that day so long as is needed to shut down work for the entire day of Monday the 12th. Okay, so that's just the facts, the logistics. And next I want to introduce more of our other speakers today to talk about why. And first, let's hear from Becca Lewis. She's a rank and file union member.
Hi, I'm Becca Lewis. That's BECCALEWIS. And I'm a rank and file union member. Occupy Portland is a big tent that represents all of the 99%. And I think it's important to remember that while unions are part of the Occupy movement, we also represent the 89% of workers that don't have a union, and the millions that are un- and underemployed, as well as students and retirees. We represent the whole 99%. Shut down the port is an action of the Occupy movement, not only here in Portland, but in the 23 other cities that have signed on to participate in this call to action, including Anchorage, Vancouver, BC, Seattle, Tacoma, Longview, Oakland, LA, and San Diego. This action will bring together all workers from the 99%, organized and unorganized alike, those from the ports, those from the trades, and those workers who don't have union representation. Workers face stagnant wages, and the corporations in power are consistently funding legislation like we saw in Wisconsin that attacks our right to organize unions, and legislation like SB 1070 in Arizona that works to put immigrant workers in prison. We also face legal restrictions on our rights to organize in our unions effectively. Shut down the port, community picket shows that workers will not be divided. We are united. We recognize that the 1% has an unacceptable level of wealth and power, and workers will organize together to change our broken system.
Okay, next we have Jordan McIntyre. He's a rank and file building trades union member.
Hi, my name is Jordan McIntyre. That's JORDANMC, capital I, NTYRE, and I'm a rank and file building trade union member. Occupy Portland has banded together with other West Coast occupations to target Wall Street on the waterfront. There are two cases in particular that highlight the control that Wall Street has of our public waterfronts. One of them is EGT. EGT Development is refusing to honor ILWU contract in Longview, Washington. We stand in solidarity with the ILWU in their struggle against this union buster. Our action is independent of the ILWU. However, we've been inspired by the longshore workers' direct actions against EGT, and we are very unhappy by the repression they are facing by the cops and the courts, which is similar to the repression we have been facing. We know that if the 1% busts the ILWU, they will try to drive down all of our wages. Another case is the SSA. Goldman Sachs controls a majority share of the SSA, the Stevedore Services of America, a major player at the Port of Portland. The SSA is also repressing immigrant port truckers who are trying to organize their workplaces in the Port of LA, which is why Occupy LA put out the call for solidarity picket lines up and down the West Coast. Port truckers in Seattle are also facing low pay, discrimination, and unpaid time wasted at entry gates, and we are in solidarity with them. Pickets, strikes, and actions are not an uncommon part of workers' struggles. Many of the things we take for granted were fought through hard battles and won by collective action, whether that's the 8-hour workday, maternity, paternity leave, sick days, or simply safe working conditions. But the port shutdown is modeled on the kind of community action that targets egregious corporate interests and demands fundamental change beyond the workplace. Pickets at the ports have been used to fight apartheid, to demand an end to wars, to block ships carrying sweatshop cargo, and to take important political stands. Our community picket on December 12th marks a turning point in the Occupy movement, where we say enough to Wall Street corporations using our public infrastructure to amass immense wealth and power. We march on the ports to demand that Wall Street be held accountable for bad business practices and remind us that worker struggles, pickets, strikes are what enable the gains that we enjoy today.
Okay. Next is Dustin Hawks. He's an Iraq War veteran.
Hello, Dustin Hawks, D-U-S-T-I-N-H-A-W-K-S, U.S. Navy veteran. Veterans are the working class. When they come home, jobs need to be available, good living wage jobs. Veterans for Peace recognizes the important role of organized labor in making this possible and recognizes workers' rights are human rights. We support the statement put out by Scott Olsman, veteran from Oakland, that veterans respect labor and expect all workers to respect our community picket.
Thanks. And next is Nina Ryerson. She's a non-unionized worker here in Portland.
Hi, that's Nina, N-I-N-A, Ryerson, R-E-I-E-R-S-O-N. The ports are an example of the broken system. The message of our community picket is that working people will shut down the production and distribution of the 1% because this production and distribution unfairly benefits the 1%. As a member of this community, I face attacks on my right to organize a union. I face deep cuts to critical public programs. I lack health care, and even our homes are under attack. The inequality of wealth and power in this country has allowed the basic needs of our community to go unfunded while the 1% profits from our suffering. While the ports represent the production and distribution that creates wealth for the 1%, they are also symbolic. The ports are a symbol of how the 99% goes to work every day and yet struggle to make ends meet. We will shut down work on December 12th to show that the workers are the engines of our economy. And we are done creating wealth that bypasses us and goes into the pocket of the wealthiest 1%.
Okay, and finally, our last speaker is Arthur Stamoulis, and he's a trade justice organizer.
Good morning. Again, my name is Arthur Stamoulis, S-T-A-M-O-U-L-I-S. I'm here today as a member of the Occupy movement, but my day job involves some trade policy analysis, and I was asked to put Monday's action in a bit broader context. You know, up and down the West Coast, we've got ships and shipping containers coming into our ports full and far too often leaving empty. And the reason for that is because of trade policies like NAFTA, the WTO, that were written by and for large corporations and make it easier for jobs to be shipped around the world to wherever labor is the most exploited and environmental regulations are the weakest. You know, in the logic of these corporations, why make something in Oregon when you can pay workers even less to make it in Mexico? And why make it in Mexico when you can pay workers even less to make it in China? And today they're asking, you know, why make things in China when we can pay workers even less to make them in Vietnam? That's the twisted logic of these corporations and the policies that our government is putting in place to make their jobs easier. And the results of this are clear to anyone who's willing to look. I'm going to talk for a second about the impacts locally, but these are impacts that are felt around the world, and we shouldn't be fooled for a second that working people anywhere benefit from this, because these trade agreements are devastating the lives of working people, family farmers, and the unemployed worldwide. You know, since NAFTA and these other trade agreements were enacted, our trade deficit has exploded. It was over $800 billion in 2008. If things continue on their current course, it's soon going to be over $1 trillion a year. A trade deficit that large means job loss and depressed wages for working people in this country. The U.S. Labor Department has already certified over 2.5 million jobs as being offshored, and that number doesn't even include service sector work, like the call centers and the computer programming jobs that are continually being shipped overseas. You know, poll after poll shows that the American public opposes these type of trade agreements that ship U.S. jobs overseas, and yet our elected officials keep passing them. Just this fall, Senator Ron Wyden and Congressman Earl Blumenauer voted for the largest free trade agreement since NAFTA. You know, these are trade deals that their government's own studies show are going to expand the trade deficit. And it's clear, you know, the Occupy movement has been saying since day one, our elected officials are too accountable to Wall Street and not accountable to their constituents. And this is a dynamic that continues and is very clear in terms of our trade policy. And that's why Monday's action is so important. You know, the ports aren't just a symbol of corporate power, they're actually a hub, a central spot where corporate power is exercised. And on Monday, we're going to show Wallstreet, you know, which thinks just because it has most of Congress in its pocket, that they control the economy. We're going to show them that the real economy only operates with the good graces of the working class. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. That's all of our speakers today. We can entertain